Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. You are listening to Sons of Ours podcast. My name is Ian Wintering.
And I am Micah Flores.
So today we have a very special guest on the show. It's the producer himself.
Father Brady Wagner.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great to be with you guys.
Yeah, it's so funny because we mention you at the end of every episode.
Yeah.
We missed one. I remember we missed one episode, and I was like, oh, no.
Oh, that's right. It's always great to get a shout out. But especially great to be with you guys today.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, so for those of you if you don't know, Father Brady, so he's one of the priests here at the seminary. And one of his big roles recently, at least this year, was to be one of the priests or the leaders of the SY year, or the spirituality year, that we've talked about a couple times on the podcast. But
this year, first year in the SY house, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was 2 years as a house father and formator for the rest of the seminary, and then now my first year in SY.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And before that, parochial vicar up in Boulder.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, St. Thomas Aquinas. Yeah. Sco Buffs.
Sco Buffs. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show too, because you're getting ready like for the 30 day the 30 day.
Yeah, the guys, they're heading out on Monday morning, bright and early. We're gonna have mass at 5, and then they're gonna hit the road after.
And you're going up with them?
Actually, no, I'm not. I've directed a couple of 30 days, but now I'm. These guys are going alone, and
Sweet.
They're gonna have a tremendous experience. I know. Been walking with these guys for the last 9 months almost, and a lot of graces are prepared for them.
Right.
Yeah. Was it like a totally different dynamic being a formator in the SY house than?
Oh, absolutely. It was like learning how to be a formator all over again.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, just because of how different it is, but.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So they'll leave Monday morning, and then it's they go up to Broomtree in South Dakota, which is right by Yankton.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's just outside. Yeah.
Yep. It's a beautiful area. It's kind of like right in the middle of all these cornfields, and there's an old church there and a lake close by.
Yeah, it is a great spot. It really is beautiful. A great setting for a retreat.
Definitely.
There's a lot of poison ivy down there, though.
Yeah, that's right.
One of our guys, Dustin Johns, if you remember.
Yeah.
He sat down in a bush, and it happened to be.
Gosh.
He had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
I didn't know poison ivy could
wise.
get that serious.
What do they say? It's like, when leaves of 3, let it be.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, cool. So we're hoping to talk about Mary today.
Oh, yeah, being the month of May.
Yeah, the month of May. And it being at the end of the kind of like this season of the podcast, me and Ian were talking, we're like, we haven't talked about our mother yet.
Right. Yeah.
We can't let that happen. We're like, it's the month of May. It's towards the end. We got to dedicate one to her,
Yeah.
She's such a great mother.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we were talking to you a little bit earlier. Mary was like pretty important in how you came to the faith and even your vocation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a parish called Our Lady of Mount Carmel back in Carmel, Indiana. And I didn't move to Colorado until my senior year in high school. And so I finished high school here and then went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, got my undergrad there. But it was while I was at school in Boulder that my faith really started to come alive. This was back in 2002. I ended up, it was my junior year, was studying accounting and was really just starting to consider more deeply, like, where I'm at, what my life is about, and went on a retreat. And it was there on that retreat that my heart just broke open, kind of really for the first time, and graces of my baptism, which I hadn't really, they really had been dormant for much of my life, just started to be reawakened. And
wow.
And there, that was October 6th, 2002. And October 7th is the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, so I came back and celebrated the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. I'm like, okay, Lord, my life is yours. I'm all in. And that was kind of like the kickoff of my life, kind of following Christ. And And also in that October, John Paul II declared the year of the Rosary and wrote
my gosh.
Rosarium Virginis Mariae. And so probably one of the funniest things is that was one of the first things I read when I kind of started really taking my faith seriously and practicing the faith. I mean, like a papal document. How do you read one of those? I don't know how it ended up in my hands, but that shaped my life in so many different ways.
Yeah, most of the time when you come back to the faith, I don't know what you read first, but
like Peter Kreeft, or I don't know, like
I didn't even know what an encyclical was until seminary. It's just the work of God's providence.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So just tremendously grateful for just how it all came together that way.
Right. And I mean, Mary in the life of St. John Paul II, it's pretty crazy to see everything that she did. You know, I guess the most famous story is when he got shot. It was like almost point blank range, right? And somehow it like just missed the major artery. If it was like a centimeter either way, when the bullet hit St. John Paul II, then he would have died.
Right.
But somehow it just like missed right through. And so he attributed it to Our Lady of Fatima.
Right, yeah. Because it was on May 13th when
that
assassination attempt happened.
Yeah.
What did he say? Like one finger pulled the trigger, another finger guided the bullet?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then he brought the bullet a couple years later, and I'm guessing it was on Our Lady of Fatima again, but when he did a pilgrimage to Portugal, and he put that bullet in the crown of Mary. It's just like a powerful story.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I remember hearing a quote from him. He's like, "The Rosary is the one meeting between me and Mary that I will never miss."
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And he has just, you can tell when, I remember reading that document, you could tell this was really near his heart. Just the way that he wrote it. He was even talking about his own personal experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the Rosary is the one thing I think that like everyone should carry around in their pocket. You know,
right? Yeah, and it's always funny in seminary because that's kind of like the standard. Like, hey, you want to pray a rosary, and everybody just
everyone's
out
like
of their pocket.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I had someone in one of my early years as a priest. Someone gave me a rosary made of rope, and I loved it. It was, I mean, I prayed so many rosaries on that, and then I actually gave it away to someone I visited in the hospital. They were sick, and they, just to be able for them to pray. And it came, and I was like, "Oh Lord, I don't know if I can part with this one. I just love this rosary." And then it actually came back to me eventually. And
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. And then I gave it away again to someone who I visited in the hospital, and it came back to me again.
Holy cow!
And then
That's insane.
And then finally, a third time, I'm like, "Okay, Lord, I know I'm going to get this one back, so I'll give it away pretty freely." And then it's gone. And then it was gone. I never saw it again. So, yeah. So hopefully someone's praying with that.
The Lord is so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So was it like random people too? That you were giving it to?
Yeah, just people in the hospital. Like, so a couple of them were parishioners, but I think one was just a random person.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
But I think John Paul II's love for the Rosary, and obviously it's not just a love for the Rosary, it's a love for Our Lady, and especially through Mary, the heart of Jesus, because that's really one of the big things that he hits in that letter is that the Rosary really is a Christological or Christocentric prayer, and that Mary is constantly leading us to the heart of her Son Jesus and desiring to form us into Him through her prayer, through her maternal care. But he had such confidence in the Rosary that even from the beginning, he says that this prayer is destined to bring forth a harvest of holiness. So he has just such confidence that that at the beginning of this third millennium, that he really wants to entrust this gift to the faithful to say, remember the richness of what this is. Because a lot of times, people say the Rosary is like, oh yeah, it's kind of dry and boring. Right. And he says, honestly, it's a lot of times it's because people don't pray it well. People pray it superficially and it's just sad and unfortunate.
Well, it kind of, I don't know. it's tempting for it to just to kind of be like a prayer that you want to get done in the day or something like that, you know, and so you do it rushed, or you do it like, I don't know, whenever you have spare time. But whenever you like actually intentionally praying it, I don't know, there's just like so much to meditate on, you know, and all the mysteries go through like basically the whole gospel.
Right, yeah, and that's that's actually what he calls it. He calls it the compendium of the gospel. It's just kind of a summary. And you know, just looking at the liturgy as the heart of the church's life, and the Eucharist in the heart of Jesus as, you know, just the source and summit of every Christian's spiritual life. That he describes it as kind of an unpacking or an echo of that liturgy through one's personal life. And so I think when you look at the compendium of the gospel and you look at all those mysteries of the rosary, and that summary of Christ's life, that in a certain way, it's kind of like the liturgical year in our public liturgy, just our liturgical year in our private devotion. And so being able to experience that, appropriate it, live it more fully.
Because there's different, during the different seasons.
That's you got joyful, sorrowful, glorious, and then luminous.
Yeah, and so actually the luminous came with this document.
With it, right.
Yeah, in 2002. So he ended up...
Right.
I mean, I always wondered that when I was a kid, you know. We got the rosary, and it's like, you know, he's 12 years old, and all of a sudden now he's got the cross on his back. It's like, wait a minute. Like, what happened to the rest of his public ministry? So, I was really grateful the way that he had proposed those mysteries, the luminous mysteries, for our deeper reflection and consideration of Christ's life. And he even talks about not just in terms of the rhythm of the liturgical cycle, or just like an appropriation or personal appropriation of the liturgy, in our private life and devotion. But he also talks about just the rhythm of human life in general, and just being able to see, like, if Jesus really is the fullness of what it means to be human, to be able to look at him and see how it's all developed in his life, and especially in his relationship with Our Lady, but that it really is the fullness of humanity, and the rhythm of human life is what he calls it. The rhythm of human life. And so it's not just sacramental, but even just kind of like, what does it mean to be conceived and then to live all the way through suffering, death, and into the glorified life that he desires to give us.
Right, yeah. And I mean, that's so important in prayer, to always remember that Jesus has assumed every aspect of our humanity too. Especially like in different moments of suffering or trial or anything like that. That's where you can end up going to, right? Is being with Jesus in those moments, whether it's like in the Gospels or at some point in his life, you know, where he may have endured like the same thing.
Right. He's been tested in every way, yet without sin. Right. And, you know, I think actually St. John Eudes was the one who kind of really put me onto this for the first time. Is basically simply asking the question, Jesus, what mystery do you want to live out in me? What mystery of your life are you desiring to live out in me? And beginning to see my life as just kind of he is the fullness of the revelation of the Father, but there's an aspect of your life that you want to live out in me. And the way that St. Paul says, you know, I've been crucified with Christ, and the life I live now is not my own. Christ lives in me. You know, I still live my human life, a life of faith, but it's all in response to the one who has loved me and given himself for me. But it's just like, Jesus, you live in me, and you want to live out your life in me. What mystery are you desiring to live out in my life? And what you did then, you are doing now. And I think the rosary is just so powerful because we constantly go back to those same mysteries over and over and over again, and they become more real in our life. You know, in the backdrop of those Ave Marias, all those Hail Marys, you know, as that's the kind of like the context, or kind of like marinade we're in. You know, we're just like watching the mysteries of Christ's life just pass before our eyes.
Yeah. It the image that's kind of coming to mind too is The Passion of the Christ, the movie, Mel Gibson seems to portray it well. And sometimes I just like, if I'm ever praying the sorrowful mysteries, I kind of remember a lot of those different scenes that Mary's in, because it shows Mary with Christ the whole time through all of those.
Yeah.
And as you're praying those mysteries, like that's kind of just the perspective that I think about so much,
right?
Because she was there, and like the different things that she was doing, or just like her reactions that they portray in those movies too. And
in fact, John Paul II has something really powerful to say. I just think the way that he articulates it is amazing. He's talking about Mary's memories, and he basically says, Mary obviously lived her life with her eyes fixed on Christ, even from the very get-go. When the angel Gabriel comes to her,
right,
she's got her eyes kind of like when she says, "Behold, I'm the handmaid of the Lord, let it be done unto me according to thy word." It's like immediately her eyes turn from, in some way, the gaze of the Father to the gaze of the child within her womb. And he says, as she kept all these things, pondering them in her heart, the memories of Jesus impressed upon her heart were always with her, leading her to reflect on the various moments of her life at her son's side. And so the rosary then for him is just like, is basically a litany of her memories. Like Mary's rosary is just contemplating the memories of what she shared at the side of her son. Right. Yeah. And it's just, the rosary is just our invitation into that. And Mary just wants us to experience that same just beauty, affection, tender care and love, mercy, and then above all, conversion, to be conformed to Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who knows better the life of a man than the mother?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just like all the way through. Yeah.
And this is another fascinating thing that I've never heard anybody else say, but just Mary is a model of contemplation, not just simply as a disciple, her being a perfect disciple, but even looking to Mary, and he says, in a unique way, the face of the Son belongs to Mary. It was in her womb that Christ was formed, receiving from her a human resemblance, which points to an even greater spiritual closeness. But he says, when you think about the face of Mary, Jesus was the one who received his face from her. So just thinking about naturally.
Whoa! Oh my gosh!
Like they
I've never
looked
thought
alike,
about that before.
But he says, that pales in comparison to the spiritual closeness that they have. But even just looking at Mary and seeing like, wow, even Mary, I see you, just kind of as an intimation to pointing already towards the face of your son.
Wow.
Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah, oh my gosh, I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
The only other human being that shares some sort of resemblance to
Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Conceived by the Holy Spirit. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the end, John Paul II obviously has tremendous devotion to Our Lady, but he really roots this in a contemplation of the mysteries of the Rosary, and he quotes Paul VI saying that that basically a body without a soul is dead, and so too the Rosary prayed without a contemplation of the mysteries is painful. And I think this is what most people experience.
Right.
Right. Is that they don't have a life saturated by contemplation and Lectio Divina. And so when they pray the mysteries of the Rosary, they're like, I don't even know what's going on. What am I supposed to be thinking about? So I start thinking about anything and everything. But when we have something like, an icon of that mystery, or we already have a rich kind of experience of prayer in the backdrop, or we've read the mystery before we prayed that decade, then it starts to come more alive. And I think there's something important, thinking about the 30-day for these guys, the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius. One thing that he really has us do is do repetitions of the mysteries of Christ's life. And those repetitions are, they really never get old, honestly.
No, because there's always, there's such a depth to all of the
inexhaustible
mysteries.
depth. Yeah. And, you know, the way that St. Paul says that it's in Christ, all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge are stored up. I mean, in an infinite way. And so, yeah, they're inexhaustible, literally. And even too, you know, like in as much as it is very profound in terms of its contemplation of Christ, it's also very simple, you know, like even the smallest children can have the rosary and be able to pray it well. But even too, like, you know, as we grow in the spiritual life, oftentimes there's times of a deeper simplicity and a more recollection in prayer.
Yeah.
But even the rosary can accompany that because maybe I'm not doing a lot of discursive meditation or whatever on the mystery itself, but there's a simple gaze, and just as I experience the name of Jesus at the heart of every Hail Mary, it's like that's enough for me. Is that it's just like the heartbeat of my life, you know, and I'm just present to Jesus in the way that I pray the rosary, and I'm not really like thinking about a lot of things, just contemplating the mystery itself, not a specific mystery.
Right. That reminds me of what Father Thermos said to us. This was like one of the first couple weeks that we had gotten into our spirituality year, and we had started doing the rosary walks in the evening, which is something that the spirituality year does. And Father Thermos was like, yeah, whenever I do this rosary, I just like to think of myself like as a little child walking next to Mary, holding her hand, kind of around campus.
Yeah,
it's like, and that was like his prayer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was his
So
prayer
simple.
for that 20 minutes. And so sometimes, like, sometimes we're just like exhausted, and we're there, we're praying the rosary, and we just want to be with our mother, and like she just wants to be with us too. And that is something that's so beautiful too, especially day to day, just constantly going back and spending that time, and experiencing her motherly care.
You know, I know we've been talking a lot about John Paul II, but a couple of years ago I met Pope Francis, and you know, shaking his hand and talking, and I don't know any. My Spanish is terrible, so. So I'm like, you know,
I don't know what
obviously,
that's like at all.
Yeah, right. And so, you know, so, you know, he just ends up reaching into his cassock and pulls out his rosary beads and just kind of shakes them, and you know, just like he presents them in front of my face, and he just looks at me and he says, "Every day."
Oh my gosh!
I'm like, okay,
holy cow!
Thank you, Holy Father.
Oh,
yes. Wow. But it was a really powerful moment of just, you know, even like. Not just the testimony of John Paul II, but you know, Pope Francis just saying, you know, stay close to Our Lady every day. Do not stray from her, just like what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can feel it in your life, and I mean, all the great saints. I mean, especially Saint Louis de Montfort. I mean, one of the saints, the Marian saints himself. Just him talking about like one of the quickest, I think this is how he starts. He's like one of the quickest and surest ways towards becoming saints and towards going to heaven is through Mary.
Right.
Yeah. And that just like always has stuck with me.
Yeah. And it's just such a fascinating thing because, you know, in God's providence, I mean, in his design and plan, like Mary is really nothing compared to God, but in his plan, he has chosen to entrust everything to her.
Right.
And he was the one who first entrusted Jesus to her, and his confidence in her. And to be able to see that it's precisely and only through her yes does he end up saving the world. Does he begin that work of salvation. And so if we are to be conformed to the life of Jesus, it's only going to be through Mary's yes, because she's the one who, through her yes, conceived Jesus in her womb. And as she gave birth to Christ, the head, so too is she nurturing, nourishing, and giving birth to Christ, his body. You know, and at the foot of the cross, it's a remarkable thing. Jesus saying, "Behold your mother." You know, this is his parting gift. I want to give you the gift that I've received, even.
Yeah.
And the catechism. Oh man, sorry, there's so many thoughts just kind of going on from my mind here. But yeah, even the catechism describes how Mary was instrumental in teaching Jesus how to pray. I mean, meditate on that one for a while.
Right.
That Mary teaches Jesus how to pray in her own meditation of the scriptures.
Yeah, which is, I mean, the fact that Jesus, this mystery always confounds me, that Jesus grew, like from the scriptures, Jesus grew in wisdom and in age.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of confounds me. But yeah, like in some ways he had to, and Mary was the one who was teaching him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, and Joseph in some ways as well. Yeah, that just blows my mind. Yeah, and the passage from John where Jesus entrusts his mother too is powerful. I can remember, so I shared on the last episode that I was probably more Protestant than I was Catholic in high school.
Oh, yeah. Even though it was a Catholic high school?
Yeah. I mean, because I went to Presbyterian youth group and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I kind of always just had this question about Mary. I had never really learned very much about her. I definitely hardly ever prayed the rosary or anything like that. And when I was up at camp, one of my friends up there was doing the consecration and the 33 days to morning glory, and he lent me that, and I was kind of struggling through it, through conversion. There's just different moments where you're really uncomfortable. You're like, this doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was reading that passage where it just all hit me. I was like, it's right there. You know what I mean? Jesus told us that she's our mother.
Yeah.
What else do I have to question? What else do I have to question about her? Jesus is entrusted us to her. And it's, I just love that passage so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
And I feel too, Mary has even a very particular special role to play in the lives of priests and seminarians. Mary is the one that picks the priest for her son. She is the one that's I want that one. He would be good for my son. And so that for me has always been the really powerful thing to always run back to and remember, Mary has always been there. She picked me, I'm not a priest yet, but in my own discernment, to constantly run back to that and realize that Mary has played a huge role, in that confirmation,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's, as Jesus says at the Last Supper, it's not you who've chosen me, but I have chosen you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same is true with Our Lady.
Right.
And it's a fascinating thing, just the mystery of the gift of life. I didn't choose or merit to be born or be conceived. It just happened. And I think in a similar way we can say that about the spiritual life. Just Mary just through her love and givenness to God, that somehow through her yes, spiritual life was given to me.
Right.
Yeah, and through the faith of her and the faith of the church, that I've been reborn in Christ.
Right.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and there's so much to say. And then we didn't even touch on just kind of the power of intercession, and just the way that the rosary is just a powerfully intercessory prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of saints talk about its efficacy in terms of fighting against the evil of the world. John Paul II, he says we should pray the rosary for two intentions. He outlines in there, one for peace, obviously, and that's echoing some Marian apparitions like Lourdes and Fatima. Telling them to pray the rosary. Actually, I love that. She tells Bernadette Soubirous, pray the rosary for the conversion of sinners. And Bernadette's like, what do you mean the conversion of sinners? And she just smiles back. And that's all. And but yeah, just pray for the conversion of sinners and pray But he says specifically pray for peace in the world, and then the second thing is pray for the family, because they're just real threats against the family, not just from within but from without. So those two things he outlines to say, hey, pray the rosary, and he gives a lot of tips on how to be able to pray it more fruitfully. But
yeah, and then there's, I don't remember who said it. This is kind of funny. This always happens, but it's like give me an army praying the rosary, and we'll conquer the world, or something. Like
I think it was St. Louis de Montfort. Yeah,
St. Louis.
Yeah, okay. I'm talking about a Marian army.
You're right.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't feel like you have to. I often tell people this in confession. I often give like decades of the rosary and just contemplating a particular mystery. Don't feel like you have to pray the whole rosary every time you pull it out. You can just pray one decade at a time pretty easily, and that's a good way to start. But especially starting to experience the fruits of contemplation in the midst of it.
Right.
I can just focus on one mystery, and then not have to worry about kind of cranking through the whole thing. But,
right. Yeah. Especially if there's just like one thing that's really moving your heart. Like you don't have to move on to the next mystery. Oh, I just finished the decade.
Yeah. You'd be a good director for the 30 days. Stay with that. Don't move on. Stay with that grace.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think we all got ours in our pocket. If you don't have one, the rope rosaries are good. I always like to pray with the wooden ones.
The
wooden beads ones. So.
But if you want an absolutely indestructible one, I forget the name of the company that makes them, but it's like the Manly Rosary or whatever.
Oh, really?
Where it's made of the military climbing rope.
Like P-cord.
Yeah. And the beads are metal. So the whole they actually, I think it's the Army Rosary actually is what it's called. Okay. So you can like the guys out out in the middle of the battlefield could actually have it on them, and it would be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Tyler Froelich has one of those, and it's like the most masculine looking rosary.
Indestructible. Yeah.
That's not going to break in your pocket.
No.
No doubt about that. Awesome. Well, we just want to ask for everyone's prayers too for all of our brother seminarians who will be going on the 30-day this next week. So for the next month, and then again a couple of our other brothers who are going to be getting ordained here in the next couple weeks.
Right.
So.
And we're still in finals week.
We're still in finals week.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end.
Right.
We're coming close. A couple more finals, and it's a beautiful time of the year too.
Yeah.
So.
Month of May.
Oh yeah.
All dedicated to Our Lady.
You bet.
Well, Father Brady, thank you for taking the time to come on today's episode.
Oh, it's great to
people finally get to know who you are.
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and
thanks for sharing everything too about just for your prayer. And,
definitely.
How the Lord is working in your life. So
absolutely.
It.
Yeah. Well, you've been listening to Sons of Ours podcast.
That's ours with an A. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.